Hello everybody, I'm Dan. In this tutorial I'm going to talk about the if statement, really the most commonly used statement in the entire C language there. Let's go ahead and to begin with, let's open up a web browser to my website, thegpu.com, select menu, see tutorials. Let's scroll down here to the if statement. So a statement in C is a complete unit of execution terminated with a semicolon. Now a statement can be as simple as a unit of execution, for example, like int a equals 100 semicolon, or printf, hello world semicolon. Statements inside of the main function are executed in a top-down order. Now what if we want to change the order of how statements are executed, or even prevent statements from being executed based on a certain condition? Now C provides a set of control flow statements to perform that very task. The most basic of the control flow statements is the if statement. Let's talk about the if statement structure. So the if statement evaluates a condition to determine if the result is either true or false. Now the conditional test is contained inside the set of parentheses located directly after the C keyword if. If the condition evaluates to be true, then the statements inside of the code block are executed. The code block braces are optional for execution of just a single statement. So let me talk about that here. Here's the if keyword, left parenthesis. The condition we're going to test for has to be equal true in order for this code block, which starts with the left parenthesis and ends with the right parenthesis. Any of the statements executed in here are if the condition is equal true. Now what if we want another statement or statements to execute based on the condition evaluating to false? Well, that is where the else C keyword comes into play. So if this is equal to true, then everything in this code block is executed, and here's the else keyword, right? So if this is false, right, then everything inside of this will get executed. Now the conditional test can be performed using one of the common C relational operators, such as equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, or not equal to. So, in the code below, I will also discuss if statements without code blocks and the commonly used if, and then else if can infinitely repeat, and then else syntax. I'll go over that here in just a second there. Alright, let's go ahead and move the browser off screen here. I've got a shortcut to the command prompt on my desktop, but if you don't, you can create one really fast by right-clicking, selecting New, Shortcut, CMD, next finish. Just that easy. When you open this up, type in GCC and press Enter. You should get this exact message here, or something pretty close to it. But if you get something that says command contains unrecognized phrase or keyword or something, watch my tutorial on installing GCC. You want to make sure you get that installed properly. Clear the screen. Change directories to the root. Let's make a directory here called cdemo, and I already have it, but if you don't, it'll create it for you. Let's change directories to the cdemo folder, and I'm going to create another folder here. Make a directory if statement. Okay. Change directories to the if statement folder. I'm going to use Notepad++. You can use just plain old Notepad without the plus if you don't have it installed. And I'm going to do if statement.c. Okay, let's go ahead and create that. Alright, let's bring the web browser back over and highlight all this code right here. Let's just copy it and paste it. Bada bing. Let's move the browser back off screen here. Alright, let's go ahead and save that there. Alright, so basically what we're starting off with here is we're declaring three variables of int type, and then I am assigning some values to those. Current speed 72, speed limit 65. As you can surmise already, we are speeding, of course. First thing we're going to do is display to the console the speed limit is, what the speed limit, and what we're traveling there. So here's our first if statement. So if current speed equals 65, you are driving exactly the speed limit. Good driving. So everything within this code block, these two statements right here, will only execute if this evaluates to being true. Okay? Which of course it won't, because our current speed is equal to 72. Now, on the next if statement right here, I've got, if we're testing if current speed is greater than 65, which in fact it is, that is true, everything inside of this code block will execute. will display to the console you're traveling over the speed limit. And then we're going to calculate the difference of the speed limit, which is the current speed minus speed limit. Now what we have here is we have what's called a nested if statement. And it's nested because it's inside of the code block of an if statement that's kind of like an outer if, right? You could think of it like that. So this nested if statement here is then going to check to see if the difference between the speed is greater than or equal to 5. In other words, you're going over 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, so better slow down. You're at risk for getting a speeding citation. But if you're not, then you're just doing some minor speeding, just like everyone else on the road. All right. The next if statement is if current speed is less than 65. All right. Then you are traveling under the speed limit. Will display, right? Then we'll display a new line and then a bunch of dashes there, and that's where we're kind of going to stop there. So we've got 3 if statements. If it's equal to 65, if it's greater than 65, if it's less than 65, right? So the only one that's going to execute is this one, right? And then the speed difference, 72 minus 65 is 7 miles an hour, right? That speed difference is going to be greater than or equal to 5, so this will display right here. All right, let's go ahead and save this. Let's compile it. GCC, if statement C minus O. There we go. Output. Statement. So here's what we got. We got our exe right here. Let's go ahead and clear our screen. And I'm going to do if statement.exe. And so down to everything above here is what we're looking at right now. It's exactly what we expected, right? Currently, the speed limit is 65. Displayed that line. You are traveling over the speed limit. Better slow down. You're at risk for getting a speeding citation. Okay, exactly what we expected there. All right, let's move on to the next little section here, which is the if, else if, else. So we can essentially perform the same thing as above by using the if, else if syntax. Okay, and the way this works is we've got our if statement right here. If current speed is equal to 65, bada boom, bada bing. And then we have an else if right here, right? So test this. So if this evaluates to true, it'll go ahead and execute this and ignore all of this. If this evaluates to false, it'll go ahead and check down here on the next conditional operator, which is if current speed is greater than 65, and it'll display this. Now, if this evaluates to true, then it won't even come down and do this. But had this evaluated to false, so if this evaluates to false, this evaluates to false, then finally, basically, it'll execute everything inside this final else code block right here. You're traveling under the speed limit. So let's just take a look and see what it said. If else if, you are traveling over the speed limit. Exactly what we expected, because current speed is greater than 65. So this did not execute and this did not execute. All right, moving on, let's go to the optional code block syntax, right? And this is my least favorite type of the if. It can be prone to nasty bugs, like for example, Apple's famous goto bug that really wreaked havoc on SSL and stuff like that. But anyway, way this works is, so if you got this if statement right here, the if statement technically doesn't terminate until this semicolon gets executed right here. So if current speed is equal to 65 on the next line down, it doesn't even have to be the next line down. It just basically, if this evaluates to true, it executes everything up into the semicolon, right? Okay. If it's greater than 65, that'll happen. If current speed is less than 65, this will happen. As you can see, I didn't even put it on a new line. The compiler really doesn't care. Now, the final part of the syntax here is the if-else right here. So if this is greater than 65, then this single statement will work here, right? Else, this will work right here. The one thing you cannot do with this is execute more than one statement, per se, in between the if and the else if. This will not work. This will create a, as a matter of fact, let's go ahead and save it and I'll show you, right? So you're going to get an error right here, right? And that's because we just executed two statements. So if you're going to not put in the, the code block, opening syntax, closing syntax there, you can only execute one statement after each keyword. So if or else, and then this statement there. Okay? So that's basically the way that works there. Let's go ahead, let me save that, recompile. Let's clear our screen, recompile that. Let's run it again here. And basically, you're traveling over the speed limit, you are speeding, right? So this one executed right here, and this one executed right there. All right, I am going to go ahead and minimize that, and just leave you guys with some final thoughts. What I would suggest here is playing around with changing the current speed variable. Change it to, like, for example, 48, 65, 68. See what happens. Also, stay tuned for my next tutorial on the Boolean true-false data type. And technically, well, anyway, probably shouldn't call it a data type, but we'll go over some other stuff on that too as well. But anyway, that concludes this tutorial. Thanks for watching.